July 17, 1936. Tetuan, Spanish Morocco. Francisco Franco stood over a map, eyes fixed on the terrain before him. His hand slowly traced the outline of mainland Spain. A career soldier since his late teens, 43 years old. And yet in this moment he was about to give the order to turn against his own homeland. What was going through his mind? The records tell us this. In that moment, Franco did not hesitate, not even for an instant. To him, this was not treason. This was salvation. Spain was already a powder keg. 1931. After centuries of monarchy, the Spanish crown collapsed, and the Second Republic was born. But this new nation held within it two Spains that could never coexist. On one side, the left-wing Republicans. Socialists, communists, anarchists, Catalan separatists. They demanded a new Spain. On the other, the right-wing conservatives, men like Franco. The Catholic Church, the landed elite, the military officer class. They fought to preserve the old Spain. For 5 years, these two Spains collided. Strikes, assassinations, uprisings, brutal repression. Then, in July 1936, the balance finally shattered. In Madrid, the Republican government faced a moment of reckoning. The army itself had fractured. Nearly half its officers joined Franco's side, forcing the Republic to rebuild its entire chain of command from the ground up. The Republican government made its choice. In the chaos that followed the coup, local governments and labor unions seized weapons, and civilian militias expanded with breathtaking speed. Factory workers, farmers, students, railwaymen. Ordinary citizens who had never held a rifle now carried one. Spain's civil war was pulling the entire nation into its jaws. But there were eyes watching this war from afar. Berlin. Adolf Hitler. For him, Spain was opportunity. Support Franco, and he would gain an ally commanding the entrance to the Mediterranean. And more than that, he would gain a testing ground for his newest weapons. Hitler moved without hesitation. The Condor Legion. A force that included pilots, mechanics, communications specialists, and anti-aircraft crews. Roughly 19,000 men rotated through Spain in total. The latest Messerschmitt fighters, Junkers bombers. The skies of Spain became Germany's laboratory. In Rome, another telephone rang. Benito Mussolini. He too placed his bet on Spain. Mussolini dispatched large-scale formations, tens of thousands, with some estimates reaching 100,000, depending on how and when they are counted, along with tanks, artillery, and aircraft, throwing his weight behind Franco's armies. Hitler and Mussolini, two dictators whose friendship was being forged in the blood and fire of a Spanish battlefield. And the world did not see it. Or perhaps the world saw and looked away. They did not recognize what they were witnessing, a rehearsal. Moscow too began to move. Joseph Stalin. His calculation was cold and simple. If fascism took Spain, France would follow, and then the Soviet Union itself would be in danger. It had to be stopped here, now. Soviet T-26 tanks, aircraft, and weapons were unloaded at Spanish ports. Soviet military advisors set to work rebuilding the Republican Army. But Soviet support reshaped the political landscape within the Republic as well. Communist influence expanded rapidly, and with it, new fractures began to form. Inside the Republic, the first cracks were beginning to show. And from across the world, young men came. Fascism must be stopped. This is the fight for all freedom. More than 35,000 volunteers from over 40 countries made the journey to Spain. They were called the International Brigades. Doctors, workers, teachers, poets. Most had never seen war, young idealists carrying nothing but their convictions. Among them was one British writer, George Orwell, the man who would one day write Animal Farm in 1984. When he arrived in Barcelona, the city was burning with the fever of revolution. He would later write, "The working class was in the saddle. There was no tipping and no being tipped. People called each other comrade." But Orwell did not find only his ideals in Spain. Gunfire, purges, betrayal. The Republic was rotting from within. In Madrid, another famous figure had arrived. Ernest Hemingway. He carried no rifle, but he carried a pen. From a room at the Hotel Florida, he wrote, "The street battles of Madrid. The soldiers in the trenches. The civilians caught under the bombs." In Spain, Hemingway witnessed the outer limits of what human beings could endure. And he would later forge this war into a novel, For Whom the Bell Tolls. But while the writers put words to the anguish, the war raged on. April 26, 1937. A Monday. Guernica, a small town in the Basque Country. It was market day. Farmers sold vegetables. Children ran through the streets. Old men sat and talked. An ordinary Monday afternoon, 4:30 p.m. The sky began to thunder. The Nazi Condor Legion, a formation of Junkers bombers, appeared overhead. And then the bombs fell. High explosive ordnance, incendiary devices, raining down on the people who ran with nowhere to go. 3 hours. For 3 hours, the Condor Legion did not stop. Contemporary reports cited over 1,600 dead, though more recent research suggests several hundred civilians were killed. Local investigations, including those by the Guernica Peace Museum, support this revised estimate. Civilians with nowhere to flee. On this day, a new doctrine was perfected. The deliberate bombing of cities. Not military targets, but civilians themselves. Guernica became the testing ground. And this doctrine would fundamentally transform the nature of every war that followed. In Paris, a painter sat alone. Pablo Picasso. The moment he read the news of Guernica's bombing, he made his decision. I must paint this. He locked himself in his studio, through day and through night. For 1 month, he confronted the canvas. A horse writhing in agony. A mother screaming into the void. A broken sword. Eyes staring out of the darkness. A painting in only black and white, 3.5 meters tall, 7.8 meters wide. One word for a title, Guernica. This painting became a witness to every act of bombing that had ever occurred. An indictment of every war. Picasso said, "Painting is not made to decorate apartments. It is an offensive and defensive instrument of war." And slowly, inexorably, the tide turned toward Franco. German and Italian support was organized, sustained, relentless. Soviet support, by contrast, was erratic and conditional. And within the Republic itself, socialists clashed with communists. Anarchists and communists turned their guns on each other. The government could not hold itself together. Orwell wrote, "We were stabbed in the back, not by our enemies, but by our own side." Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia. The Republic's strongholds fell one by one. Autumn, 1938. The Republican Army made its final gamble. The Battle of the Ebro. A massive offensive, more than 100,000 soldiers thrown into the breach. For the first 3 weeks, the Republicans pushed forward. But the supply lines could not hold. Franco's forces, backed by German and Italian air power, drove them back. 4 months of combat, 30,000 Republican dead. The end of the Ebro meant the end of the war. January 26, 1939. Barcelona fell. 500,000 refugees surged toward the French border. The elderly, women, children, soldiers who had thrown down their weapons. This was La Retirada, the Great Retreat. On the French side, internment camps were hastily erected, places like Argelès-sur-Mer, but the conditions inside were dire. The world watched and did nothing. Late March 1939. Madrid fell. There were no shots fired. A capital that had fought for nearly 3 years surrendered in silence. April 1st. Franco made his declaration. The war is over. But this was not the beginning of peace. The end of the Civil War was the beginning of the purge. Franco did not forgive his enemies. Republicans, socialists, communists, liberals, they were hunted, imprisoned, executed. In the post-war years alone, at least tens of thousands were put to death. Across the full arc of Francoist repression during and after the Civil War, the toll is estimated in the hundreds of thousands. The precise numbers remain contested among historians. Definitions of execution, death in custody, and combat death each yield different totals. More than 500,000 were forced into exile. Spain would remain under Franco's dictatorship until 1975. 36 years. And the total death toll of the Spanish Civil War, varying by definition and methodology, is generally estimated at several hundred thousand, with many scholars placing the figure around 500,000. Approximately 5 months after Franco declared victory, from April 1st to September 1st, 1939, German forces invaded Poland. And when they did, they came with knowledge, real-world data on aircraft performance, the proven effects of urban bombing, the coordination of tanks and air power. Spain had been one of the laboratories where those lessons were learned. Yet the shape of World War II was not forged in Spain alone. Military doctrine, training exercises, and battlefield experience from other theaters, all of it converged to give birth to a new kind of war. The doctrine of urban bombing, tested at Guernica, was repeated at Warsaw, at London, at Dresden. The Spanish Civil War was the rehearsal for World War II. And the world stood by and watched the rehearsal unfold. So what can we learn from this story? The Spanish Civil War left behind many lessons. The first, the moment you tell yourself that a battle between dictatorship and democracy is someone else's problem, it has already become yours. Britain, France, and America refused to intervene in Spain. They called it non-intervention. The result, Hitler grew bold, and 5 years later, all of Europe was in flames. The second, new weapons always give birth to new forms of war. The doctrine of urban bombing, tested at Guernica, erased the line between the battlefield and civilian life. The third, internal divisions among people of principle can become more dangerous than any external enemy. The Republic could not unite. It was not defeated by its enemies. It was destroyed by its own fractures. And in Spain today, the question of how the nation should remember the victims of the Civil War and the dictatorship remains a living political issue. In 2022, the law of democratic memory was enacted, and the work of recovering and honoring the nameless dead continues. The wounds of the Civil War are still being healed, here, now, in the present. And so I put this question to you. History only shows us outcomes, but the people who lived it had no idea what the outcome would be. If you had been a world leader in 1936, would you have intervened in Spain, or would you have chosen to stand aside? Between fighting for your ideals and accepting a reality you cannot change, how should a human being decide? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for witnessing this moment in history with me. The Spanish Civil War is not a distant relic of the past. The struggle between freedom and dictatorship continues, changing shape, but never ending. Here on Turning Point History, we bring you these moments of decision every time through the eyes of the people who lived them. If you want to be there for the next turning point in history, subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next one.